Van Johnson's life was the epitome of classic Hollywood glamour on the surface, charming, talented, and seemingly tailor-made for the silver screen. Born as Charles Vandell Johnson on August 25, 1916, in Newport, Rhode Island, his childhood was marred by emotional distance and a broken home. His mother abandoned the family when he was young, and though his beginnings were far from easy, Johnson's heart was set on the stage. Eventually, he found his way to New York City, chasing a dream with the kind of grit only a boy from humble beginnings could muster. Starting in vaudeville and performing in smoky nightclubs, he gradually captured the attention of Broadway elites. His natural charm, musical ability, and good looks earned him small roles, tiny but crucial stepping stones that led him to Hollywood's gates. It wasn't long before the big studios noticed him. MGM snapped him up, and by the early 1940s, Van Johnson had become one of the studio's fastest rising stars. His timing couldn't have been better. As America was drawn into World War II, Hollywood's biggest male leads were drafted into military service. Johnson, due to a life-threatening car accident in 1943 that left him with a metal plate in his skull, was exempt. This medical disqualification kept him home while most of his contemporaries went to war, allowing him to shine in patriotic films that comforted a nation in crisis. With roles in hits like A Guy Named Joe, 1943, The Human Comedy, 1943, and 30 Seconds Over Tokyo, 1944, Johnson quickly became the boy next door of wartime cinema. His clean-cut image and youthful energy struck a chord with audiences. MGM molded him into a dependable leading man, someone wholesome, charming, and impossibly likable. He wasn't just a fleeting wartime crush. His popularity endured well into the post-war years. In dramas like The Caine Mutiny, 1954, he held his own alongside Humphrey Bogart, proving he had more than a pretty face. He bounced from light-hearted musicals to serious thrillers with ease, showcasing his talents as a singer, dancer, and even instrumentalist. His versatility made him a prized asset for the studio system and earned him legions of loyal fans, particularly among teenage girls who dubbed him the Bobby Soxer's idol. But Johnson's off-screen life was filled with complications. In 1947, just one day after Eve Abbott finalized her divorce from character actor Keenan Wynn, she married Van Johnson. The suddenness of the marriage raised eyebrows across the industry. Abbott, herself a former stage actress, brought two sons into the union, Edmund, Ned, and Tracy, both of whom would later pursue entertainment careers of their own. Couple had one daughter together, Skylar, and at first glance theirs appeared to be the perfect Hollywood family. But beneath the surface, things were far from idyllic. Years after their separation, Eve Abbott dropped a bombshell that changed the narrative of their marriage entirely. According to her, the union wasn't based on mutual affection. It was orchestrated by MGM, specifically studio head Louis B. Mayer. In the repressive, image-controlled environment of 1940s Hollywood, rumors about Johnson's sexuality threatened his marketability. Abbott claimed the studio arranged their marriage to quell speculation about his personal life, choosing her as the woman who could help maintain his public image. They needed their big star to be married, she later said. And unfortunately, I was it. Even Ed Wynn, Keenan's father and a beloved comedian, commented on the tangled relationships between Van, Keenan, and Eve with a mix of confusion and reluctant acceptance. He once remarked, "Eve loved Keenan. Keenan loved Eve. Van loved Eve. Eve loved Van. Van loved Keenan. Keenan loved Van." His words painted a complex picture, hinting at emotional ties that may have extended beyond simple friendship or marital love. Louis B. Mayer's fierce control over his studio stars extended well into their private lives. Protecting MGM's reputation meant silencing gossip, erasing scandals, and forcing actors to conform to strict moral standards, even if it meant manufacturing false relationships. For Johnson, that meant living two lives, the one crafted for the public and the private one he had to hide. The marriage between Johnson and Abbott eventually crumbled after Mayer's death in 1957. During a London production of The Music Man in the 1960s, Johnson is rumored to have fallen in love with a young male dancer. Abbott's son Ned later claimed that Van had left his family for this dancer. He left her for a man, Ned said bluntly. A boy, really? The lead dancer. After their separation in 1961, the couple finalized their divorce 7 years later in 1968. Those close to Van Johnson often described a man deeply conflicted between his public image and his personal truth. Behind the movie star smile was a man prone to emotional withdrawal, someone who preferred isolation over confrontation. Abbott would later say that Van's personality off-screen was moody, guarded, and melancholic, a stark contrast to the cheerful roles he so often played. Struggles from his childhood, particularly a strained relationship with his father, followed him throughout life, coloring his interactions and relationships. Tragically, by the time of his death in 2008, Johnson was reportedly estranged from his daughter Skylar, a painful reminder of the emotional costs of decades spent hiding who he really was. His story, though often romanticized, was riddled with secrecy, denial, and personal sacrifice, costs demanded by a studio system that prioritized box office appeal over personal happiness. And then there were the rumors, whispers that never fully disappeared. Stories circulated that Van Johnson wasn't just closeted, but had an appetite for male companionship that shocked even Hollywood insiders. Tales of wild parties held in private estates and behind studio walls spoke of a man who, once out of the public eye, sought the company of other male actors. Some accounts even claimed he had intimate encounters with as many as 8 different men in a single evening. While these stories remain largely anecdotal, they reflect a hidden subculture in Hollywood where closeted stars navigated secret lives in a system that gave them no other option. The names mentioned in these tales read like a roll call of old Hollywood: Roddy McDowall, Anthony Perkins, Farley Granger, and even a young Rock Hudson. Whether fleeting affairs or longer liaisons, these stories paint a picture of a man torn between desire and danger, indulging in love in the only way he could, hidden from public view. Johnson's presence at underground parties was said to be electrifying. Behind closed doors, he was reportedly more free, more real than anyone had ever seen him on screen. To some, the idea of Van Johnson, MGM's All-American Golden Boy, engaging in such a secret life feels scandalous. But to others, it's a tragic and deeply human story. A man caught in a time that wouldn't let him live openly. A man forced to be 2 people at once. His rumored escapades aren't just salacious tales. They are a mirror of the repression and shame that so many endured for the sake of maintaining Hollywood's glittering illusion. In the final chapter of his life, Johnson retreated from the spotlight, eventually settling in a quiet New York City apartment. Later, as his health declined, he moved to an assisted living facility in Nyack, New York, a peaceful town along the Hudson River where he lived out his days in anonymity. He passed away on December 12, 2008, at the age of 92. Cameras that once followed his every move were long gone. But his legacy, both celebrated and complicated, lives on. Van Johnson remains a symbol of a bygone era, a talented, charming actor who captivated millions on screen, while navigating a private life full of secrecy, conflict, and yearning for authenticity. His story, once shrouded in silence, is now remembered as part of Hollywood's hidden history, one that deserves to be seen not just through the lens of fame but with empathy and truth.